there, And I didn't sleep in a bed. I had a pallet, or a feather tick, whatever you'd want to call it. I just lay it on the floor and sleep around any place in the house that I could, So I had some friends that went in the service, and I had talked to their parents, and they said, well, they liked it pretty well, which they didn't stay in very long until they put them out. So I went in, and there was, I went to Fort Sheridan, Illinois.
I know where that's at. My dad was stationed there.
Okay, and so I went to Fort Sheridan in November 1947, and it was cold up there. So you go in, and they give you a physical and all this stuff, So I go in, they gave me 3 new pair of shoes, gave me underwear. I didn't even know what underwear was.
Sure.
I never had underwear in my life. And they gave me T-shirts and all these new clothes and a bed to sleep in, inside bathroom, showers, and $75 a month. I said, I'll be here the rest of my life.
Yeah, they gave you all that, and all you had to do is say, yes, sir.
That's it. That's it.
Oh, my goodness. So, and when was that again? What year was that?
1947.
Oh, my goodness. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I left from Fort Sheridan. I went to Fort Knox,
Kentucky.
Okay. And I took basic training there.
Mm-hmm.
I left from there, and I went to Fort Lewis, Washington. And I left from there, and I went to Anchorage, Alaska.
Oh, preparation, huh?
Yeah, which was wasn't a state at that time.
Right.
And that was an overseas duty.
Mm-hmm.
So I was up there for quite a while until 1950. I've been to different places. And in 1950, they sent me to Fort Lee, Virginia, Camp Lee, Virginia at that time.
Okay.
And I went in a mobile refrigeration truck. I drove a tractor and trailer then. But when I was in Alaska, I was in an ordnance company.
Mm-hmm.
Getting back to that, to tell you what my qualifications were, I was a parts clerk.
Okay.
In a warehouse. I was never in the infantry or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to, except the basic training that I took, then I went to Virginia, and I was waiting to get discharged. That was in 1950.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed in Alaska as long as I could because they only had an 18-month tour of duty, I think, there at that time. And then I went into Virginia, and then the war started. The Korean War started in June of 1950. So they said, well, you can't get discharged now. You got to stay another year. And I said, holy cripes,
Oh,
because I was looking forward to getting the $300 to re-enlist.
Sure.
Because, well, I was a corporal then, so I was getting a little more than $75 a month.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, not a heck of a lot more, but, enough to get by on. I was sent $70 a month home to my family.
Wow.
And I kept $5 of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I got a little more rank, and the pay went up a little higher, well, I got a little more money, but I got plenty. I had plenty of food and everything,
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed the service. I had no problem with it whatsoever. And I said, well, if you got a war going, and I got to stay another year, all my family are patriotic. They served in World War II. Some of them were in Midway, and some of them done the D-Day in Normandy and different things,
Midway Island, the Battle of Midway Island?
Midway, yeah.
Okay.
My mother's brother was there.
I was stationed there for a year in 1969.
Was you?
Yeah.
I guess he was there in, 1944, 45?
Probably after the battle, then the battle was 42.
42, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was there in 42.
Okay.
He was actually there when it happened.
Was he in the Marines?
No, he's in the Navy.
Oh, in the Navy. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I forget what kind of ship he was on, a small one, though,
Okay, probably a destroyer.
Yeah. And so we were all patriotic people,
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, if you got a war going, I might as well go. They said, well, we had intended to send you anyway.
Oh.
I said, okay.
But thank you for volunteering.
I said, thank you for volunteering.
Yeah.
So I was driving a tractor and trailer and a refrigeration van.
Uh-huh.
So when I first went to Korea, I went in with the 2nd Infantry Division. And I loaded my truck on a rail car in Virginia, and they shipped it to Korea. And there was 6 of us in this unit.
Mm-hmm.
And what we done, we took care of all the frozen meats that came into Korea. And like in Virginia, we took care of all of it at different areas, where they needed meat frozen,
Sure.
And so I had the tractor and trailer. And what I would do, I would load up. Well, I first went into the infantry as what they call a grunt,
Mm-hmm.
as a rifleman, because my equipment wasn't in Korea.
Nothing dishonorable about being a grunt, that's for
No,
sure.
no. So when I tell you, I got off the boat in Korea and they started shooting at me, and I said, "Bye, I'm going home." I said, "I do not need to be here."
So you got on the nearest cruise ship and headed home, right?
I said, "I'm leaving. Bye."
Yeah.
And it scared me to death. Well, I was 17 then. I was getting old.
Oh, wow, veteran.
I was getting up there in age. So my truck came in. So what I'd do is load it up with meat and stuff. Then I'd have a master sergeant or somebody. Then we go to different divisions and make it short and drop the meat off at different areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I would follow them like we go to division, battalion, regiment, and what have you. And so I was up in a place called Sinanju in North Korea,
Mm-hmm.
right up on the Yalu River. In November of I was hauling turkeys up there, frozen turkeys,
Wow.
for Thanksgiving. In fact, I saw MacArthur up there
Oh.
in 1950. I just saw him in his Jeep going down the road. That's all I saw,
Uh-huh.
But at least I saw him there anyway.
Sure.
So,
Before he was recalled.
yeah, the Chinese came into the war,
Mm-hmm.
And on my truck, I had a 30 caliber machine gun mounted on the top on a turret. I don't know if you ever saw one of those or not.
30. I've seen the machine gun, but I have never seen it installed on a truck.
Yeah,
Like that.
it had 3 posts that went up and a circle on the top,
Mm-hmm.
and a machine gun mounted on the circle. And I had a guy that rode with me that took care of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the Chinese came into the war, and I don't know if you've heard what they look like when they come in. But if you saw the Olympics the other day, what they done, so many people running around with a dove and things like that, the opening of the Olympics,
Yes.
that's the way they look coming after us.
Oh.
Look like a bunch of far ants coming out of a mountain
Uh-huh.
after us, and there's no way you can stop all of these people.
I was just going to say a whole lot of ants.
Oh, Jesus, thousands and thousands and thousands.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I have never seen this many people coming after me in all my life, So I headed south with my truck, and I had some wounded in the back. I'd unloaded everything. And I got down in a place called Coonery in November the 28th. See, I remember these dates.
Mm-hmm.
November the 28th of 1950, and I got caught in a roadblock. And you could see, they were all around us. You could see the tracers coming into it and what have you,
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, they're going to get my truck. So I set it on fire and burned it up.
Oh.
I poured gasoline on the tires and the engine and threw the illuminating grenade in and burned it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went with the Turks. We had the United Nations there.
Right.
And the Turks were there, so I went with the Turks to get out of the area we were in, where we were so far behind the lines,
Mm-hmm.
So I got out of there, and then I went back to where the commander was that was in charge of the trucks and stuff. And I figured, well, he's going to court-martial me now,
Because you burned your truck.
Yeah. And so then that was in December of 1950, so they put me in the infantry full-time as a rifleman.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I stayed until I was captured then. And so I was from August the 5th of 1950 till around the 1st of December, middle of December, I was driving the truck, and then something else, and I went into the infantry full-time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went on, and I got hurt a couple of times, nothing serious, just minor things.
This is while you were in prison camp?
No, this was before I went to prison.
Oh, okay.
This was in, in February of 50, we lost most of our, 51, we lost most of our company
Mm-hmm.
in a place called Coonery, February the 12th of 1950. And then I got out of there, too, which was a few of us that got out.
That seemed to be a pretty popular spot because I talked to a number of ex-POWs there at the reunion, and that town came up many times.
Yeah, in Coonery.
Right.
And in Hong Song.
Coonery.
Oh, Coonery, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was just north of Pyongyang.
Okay.
Yeah, the 2nd Division lost 2,000 men there.
Mm.
And some of them were captured and some were were killed. In fact, they have just